Alright, people, review of the week time. So, let's start with the big talking point coming out of the last week, which is Oleksandr Usyk. So, he announced there the other day that he has signed with Saudi Arabia's Skill Challenge Entertainment alongside his existing promoter Alex Krasuk with K2, which is obviously the Klitschko promotion. The Saudis are said to be eyeing the Fury versus Usyk fight for December. Usyk must face Daniel Dubois, which is planned in Poland on August the 26th. So, very, very interesting one. And when I seen this, my initial reaction was, okay, look, they're mentioning the Fury fight, but does that not, in a way, make this fight possibly harder to make? Because you think about it like this, right? When it's mainly been Krasuk and Warren who've been negotiating. Now, obviously, Usyk wanted to have this fight. I think he signed for it start of this year or the end of last year to happen in Saudi Arabia. Didn't happen. Fury wanted to have it in the UK. Usyk said, fine, have it in the UK. Fury kept moving the goalpost. We know that. Now they're trying to get it back in Saudi Arabia. With regards to Tyson Fury, it's only speculating, to be honest with you, but the fact that over the last couple of years, he's really kind of I would say let them down, maybe messed about is more the appropriate word, because going back to about this time 2 years ago, you had Tyson Fury saying he was on the phone with a prince in Saudi Arabia saying August the 14th is going to be Joshua, going through all that and probably negotiating with the Saudis, knowing full well that you've got this arbitration hearing going. That's always going to rub him up the wrong way. Usyk's had he's had the one fight in Saudi Arabia. I know, yeah, it's only the one, the Joshua fight, so he's familiar with them. He's obviously signed with them. With Fury, it's like he wants to have this fight in the UK unless the money is astronomical. Even with an astronomical amount of money, now that Usyk is essentially the house fighter, if you think about it, because it would have been one thing, both guys going and fighting in Saudi Arabia, crazy amount of money on the line, which we're hearing, like baseball numbers, but the fact of the matter is that both guys would have been independent of the Saudis. So you would have had Usyk with Krasuk and K2, you would have had Fury with Warren and Bob Arum. Whereas now, you still have Fury with Warren and Bob Arum, but you've got Usyk with K2 and being promoted by the Saudis, that Skill Challenge Entertainment. That, I'm just wondering, would that maybe have Fury thinking, hang on a minute, I'm sure I can win, I know it's going to be a tough fight, but now I'm going in where essentially the guy I'm fighting is a house fighter, essentially, right? And we've seen over there, with someone like Badu Jack when he fought, not Makabu, it was the other guy, I can't remember the guy's name, Richard something, I think he said his name was. Can't remember, but that fight right there was a very competitive fight. A lot of people felt Jack should have lost that fight. He hurt the opponent, I can't remember what round it was. This was on the undercard of Joshua versus Usyk too. And the round, it was near the end of the round. And I mean, that bell a minute, maybe it was a 4-minute round. When you see stuff like that, and you know that one fighter is, he's the poster boy of boxing over there is Badu Jack. He's in with them. And you see that, you do kind of think like, oh boy, if you're going to go over there, good luck trying to get a fair shot. And I wonder, again, this is just wondering, would that maybe make, because Fury's not stupid. He's not a stupid man. And I just wonder, would that maybe have him thinking, hang on a minute. I want to give myself best chance of winning. If I'm fighting the Saudis guy in Saudi Arabia, that might not end well. And I don't mean in terms of him getting battered by Usyk. I mean, he could legit win it, but maybe lose a decision. I don't know. So, let's see. Usyk on signing with Skill Challenge Entertainment. It's a great opportunity to bring the biggest fights in the heavyweight division to the boxing fans of the whole world. Tyson Fury doesn't want the fight, but we will make it. Yeah, I interpret that to mean that basically they're going to try and chuck however much money on it until Fury says, fine. That's what I interpret that to say. In terms of Oleksandr Usyk next, obviously he's going to be fighting in Poland against Daniel Dubois on August 26th. It's not formally been announced, but that's what's going to happen next. In terms of Fury, we really don't know. The Joshua thing last week, obviously that's kind of, gone by the wayside. The Joshua Fury thing is just we done videos on it, but was it ever really starting? We're hearing absolutely zilch from him now. We were hearing the likes of MC McKean. We were hearing the likes of Jay Opataya, believe it or not, a couple of weeks ago in Australia. But it's kind of gone quiet with what his next move is. I know he's been mentioning Francis Ngannou next, which that would probably be his preference because it's a massive money fight. You get crazy numbers for that, and then if you have an Usyk fight in Saudi on top of that, you mean you'll have a fairly good year in terms of your financial year, but no risk there. We've also seen him mention, or at least react to stories on his Instagram feed of Big Farmer Miller, which Big Farmer versus Tyson Fury, two people who failed tests in the past, although Big Farmer Miller is just, he is night and day above everyone in terms of failed drugs test. He really is something else. He really, really is. Him against Tyson Fury, if it did happen, Jesus. Well, the build-up would be hilarious. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, these guys would, the trash talking would be hilarious. Big Farmer Miller would be rubbing John Fury up the wrong way and everything. In terms of how they'd get on in the ring, I mean, I would see it as, look, you're only as good as your last performance, and his last performance against Lucas Brown was not amazing. You know, it really wasn't. He still showed that he has decent, well, more than decent for a guy that size, you know, conditioning. He was able to throw a lot of punches, takes the shots, but Lucas Brown is able to land on him pretty easily. And that's Lucas Brown, who's been over the hill for years. Fury would just move around the ring for 12 rounds. Some would say, can he still do that? I'm sure against a plotter like Miller he could. No problem. So, I doubt that they'll do that fight, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. In terms of fights that we do want to see, this one right here, it's not looking good. The Canelo Alvarez-Dmitry Bivol rematch is now in doubt, as Bivol's manager, Vadim Korolov, said they don't want a rematch. A rematch cannot take place on the same terms as the fight you lost. It's stupid. We're looking forward. Beterbiev is our next target. So, Canelo versus Bivol is looking likely that it's not going to happen next. And given the fact that we've heard talk about Canelo versus Benavidez, we've heard Benavidez mention, you know, that he's been team have been mentioned, they've been having words with Benavidez or with Canelo. So it looks likely we're probably going to get that fight next. In terms of the Bivol fight, I mean, with Dmitry Bivol, there's a lot of things there. So he's saying, one, that he essentially doesn't want to fight on the terms that the last fight were on because they won it. And that's fair enough. Thing is, though, like, you're dealing with Alvarez, who is the biggest star in boxing even still. And unless you are, you know, a Triple G type of guy or someone like that, you know, someone who brings a lot to the table, Bivol doesn't really, like, in terms of titles, but in terms of name, I mean, a bigger fight for the casuals is no doubt Benavidez versus Canelo. Bigger fight for legacy is Bivol versus Canelo. But realistically, who would the casual if the casuals had a choice between those two, who would they be picking? They'd probably be picking the Benavidez fight. You know, based upon, if you saw the style as well, you'd be like, oh, that's going to be amazing. We've been there, seen it, and done it with Bivol. If Canelo wants to avenge that loss, I mean, what do you do? Like, I mean, in terms of what they're saying there about Beterbiev, look, I'd love to see Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol. I think it's a great fight. I think it has to happen this year. It has to happen this year because Beterbiev is pushing 40. He's got a fight with Callum Smith lined up, and, you know, against Anthony Yard, there's moments in there where he started looking a bit old. Against Callum Smith, I think it's going to be a reasonably tough fight. I think Beterbiev is going to come through it, but that's going to be back-to-back tough fight, and then possibly in a Bivol fight. I just think that's going to be too much wear and tear for Artur Beterbiev. And I think now at this stage, you know, come what January next year, he'll be 39 or 40, thereabouts. So he's not getting any younger. And at that age, you can just overnight. As much as I love this fight, I would love to see both these guys when they're both close to their peak. And I don't think we're going to get that with Beterbiev if it gets dragged out any longer. In terms of the fight actually happening, it's a great fight, but for whatever reason, the boxing establishment just don't want that. I mean, you very seldom hear Bob Arum talk about it. You seldom hear Hearn talk about it. You know, it's only the fighters who really mention it. And, you know, we know if it did happen, they wouldn't, because Sullivan, that scumbag, wouldn't do it for Undisputed because he's a virtue signalling clown. And whatever reason, I just don't think that fight is going to get made. I just don't. I love the fight, but I just don't think it'll get made. In terms of fights that are looking likely to get made, Dylan Whyte versus Anthony Joshua is now in negotiations. They're underway. Obviously, Joshua and Whyte have been having a few back and forths over social media. Hearn has stated that they are planning to do this in the O2 Arena or potentially a stadium. Stadium might be pushing it. Now, depending on the size of the stadium, if you were talking Tottenham Hotspur, I would say probably not. But if you were looking at maybe a smaller capacity stadium, yeah, you probably could, I'm trying to think of some of the smaller stadiums that are in like London, and I'm just trying to tell you, there's not many. In terms of like big sides and stuff like that, maybe Palace Stadium or somewhere like that. I think Palace is in South London somewhere like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's in London anyway. In terms of the O2, you definitely do it in the O2. The first fight was in the O2. Why not redo it in the O2 again? In terms of Whyte versus Joshua, look, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I can't see anything other than a Joshua win, and I think this is the fight Joshua needs to look good against. He can look devastating against Dylan Whyte. The only worry I have there about this fight happening is the fact that they've tried to do this fight in the past before, 2019. Dylan Whyte priced himself out. They tried to blame Joshua, which it was clearly not Joshua's fault. Dylan Whyte priced himself out. That was just well documented. I think he was offered like $4 million, and he was like, not enough. So how that's Joshua's fault, I do not know. But Dylan Whyte versus Joshua, I think that this should have been his comeback fight. I think he should have had this as his comeback fight instead of Franklin. And then maybe, I don't know, who would you take? Maybe take a little bit of a more dangerous risk in the summer. But instead he's done it. Franklin, yeah, he won it, but a bit tricky at times. Jermaine Franklin was in there. And now he's going into Dylan Whyte fight. Now, Dylan Whyte is still dangerous. He obviously has a lot of power in the left hook. But aside from that, at this point in Dylan Whyte's career, he's had a hard career. His chin just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. He's getting hurt every fight now. I mean, Jermaine Franklin isn't a puncher, but he had Dylan Whyte hurt there. I think it was the 10th round of their fight back in November. If Franklin's hurting you, Joshua can definitely hurt you. Dylan Whyte prone to the uppercut. Joshua's short punches. The uppercut is very good. It's a great punch that Joshua has. And I just think that this is made for Joshua to look good against. Yes, Dylan Whyte will be dangerous, and Joshua found that out in the first fight, but I just think that this is a fairly run-of-the-mill, go in there, boom, bam, see you later, onwards to Deontay Wilder. I wonder, will Wilder have an interim fight? We haven't heard anything about Wilder having an interim fight, but would he, if these two are looking set to clash in December? You would imagine that Wilder would want one, because that'll be him out of the ring for over a year, in which point his opponent has had 2 fights in the space of a year. So I wouldn't be at all shocked if Deontay Wilder announces. Now, it wouldn't be anyone major, I would imagine. It's probably only got to be someone just a fairly run-of-the-mill type of guy, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did announce, I'll be fighting such and such or such and such sometime in July or August. Wouldn't surprise me at all. In terms of guys who are announcing fights, Boots Ennis versus Romane Villa is reportedly set for July the 8th. The interim title of Boots Ennis is on the line. Hopefully, this can be one of the last fights Boots Ennis has where he's kind of just fighting somebody's unknown kind of guys. Not unknown, like fringe type guys. He needs a big step up. And he's been ready for it for the last 2 years. In terms of fights that are being made domestic level, I'm hearing a lot more talk, worryingly, of Fabio Wadley versus Dave Allen next. Oh boy. Oh boy. I just don't like that fight. I really don't like that fight. I think Fabio Wadley would absolutely annihilate Dave Allen. He really, really would. He really would. And I just, again, going on about this, I just don't understand the need for this comeback. I really don't. I mean, what? I just don't get it. Dave Allen was fringe British level in his prime, which was probably about 2016, 2017, and now he's been out of the ring. Well, he's been back for all of a year, and he's had fights against nobodies over in Malta and places like that. But I mean, he didn't look particularly good coming near the end of his first career. So, I don't know how that's going to work. I really don't. Frank Warren has stated that he's going to have a meeting with Mauricio Sulaiman in the coming days, and he expects Sulaiman to set a mandatory challenger for Tyson Fury next. Interesting. Wilder 1, Ruiz 2, Joshua 3, Sanchez 4. Well, the WBC, to be fair, they did order an eliminator between Ruiz and Wilder. Wilder's team went a different way, so that would be really shocking if they made Deontay Wilder mandatory challenger without even having fought an eliminator. I'd find that it wouldn't surprise me, but I would find that absolutely shocking. Frank Sanchez, number 4. We would love to see Frank Sanchez. We would really love to see Frank Sanchez versus Fury. Last one, right? So, Frank Warren has declared that Zhilei Zhang versus Joe Joyce, the rematch, is now being planned for the month of September. I was hearing rumours about this. So I was hearing some people saying July, which I kind of thought, that's too soon, realistically. I was hearing the month of August, which kind of seemed a little bit more believable, but September probably would be the right kind of time. That's roughly 5 months, roughly, from the first fight. So Zhang versus Joyce in the rematch, looking set for September. Realistically, I mean, you would say that that's the only fight that Joe Joyce can really take at this point, because he's not going to get a voluntary crack at a world title, because obviously they're trying to do undisputed. Who else can he really fight? You know, everyone else is busy with their other fights, so that's really all Joe Joyce can do. He's too old, in a sense, to go and take a year out and rebuild and have a couple of interim fights and just try and get your confidence back. The only thing you can do is try and do a different game plan in that fight, try and work on things and try and change it up, because, I mean, I said it once, I'll say it again, he fought that fight as if he didn't know he was fighting a southpaw. That's the only way I can describe it. It was literally like, does this guy realise that he's fighting a southpaw? Because it just does not look like he knows that. It really was. It was horrendous how he fought in that fight. So him against Zhang part 2 in the month of September, that'd be interesting. Like, as I said, it is an interesting fight still is, but yeah, let's see. In terms of everything else, I think, yeah, not been much. Like, as you can see with the lack of videos, there's not been much going on in the world of boxing the last week. So there's not been a great deal, but obviously this week is Josh Taylor versus Teofimo Lopez. We obviously do a prediction video for that. Won't do a watch along for that, because I'll tell you why, it's going to be a morning job, and I actually, this coming Sunday, I've got stuff on first thing in the morning, so I need to be up and ready for that. So that one won't be a watch along, but there'll definitely be a review on that. But we'll do a bit of time previewing the card this week, previewing the fight, and we'll talk all about that kind of good stuff. So for now, I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could, and subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Lads, for now, I'll leave you with that. I hope you all have a great week. It's bank holiday over here in Ireland, thank God for that, so I'll leave it there. Peace.